Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. I'm your intrepid host, Greg Fitzsimmons, and I'm, what am I doing? It's Monday. Jesus Christ. What a weekend. Went to see Jackass. That was the highlight, that's for sure. I went with 10 other people. If you haven't seen it, get your fucking ticket. Get yourself a fistful of edibles, a tissue, and go see that movie. It is exactly what you need right now. Hardcore gut laughs. There's really only, in terms of laughing out loud till it hurts, I gotta go Jackass movies, Sacha Baron Cohen movies, and let's throw what was that movie where they were making a movie about the Vietnam War with Robert Downey Jr. and Jack Black, not Pineapple Express. Anyway, that one. I'm going to remember it. Went with 10 people. We had a blast. We went out. We went early. So we went to this bar restaurant for appetizers and drinks beforehand. And it was me and the wife, and then like a slew of friends from across my life. There was Mike Gibbons, of course, and then Mary Fitzgibbons, who I've known for 32 years. And Mary Fitzgerald, who I've known for 30 years. And then my buddy Tom O'Neill, who I've known for probably 27 years. And then Matt Malloy, who I've known for probably 24 years. Dennis Gubbins, I've known for about 22 years. And Mikey Fitzgibbons, that's another 10 years. So yeah, if you're not keeping score, it was Fitzsimmons, Fitzgibbons, Gibbons, and Gubbins together with Malloy, O'Neill, and Fitzgerald, the Irish Mafia. And we had pretty much the theater to ourselves. There was like maybe a dozen other people in the theater, and we were fucking screaming the entire time. It was so great. Then we went out to a pub afterwards. So good night. I have been missing my daughter a lot. I've been a little bit sad. It's going on 2 or 3 weeks now that she's been gone, off to college, and we're empty nesters. Me and the wife, alone in the house, just staring at each other, going, what do we do now? It's been delightful. She's wonderful, and I just thank God I've got a good friend. It's good to be married to your best friend, and it's been an adventure. We've been going out a lot, being social, but some depression creeping in. I was trying to do. I got back into doing my mantra, doing my meditation. I took TM, Transcendental Meditation, about 10 years ago. And I've stuck with it. I've been really good about it over the years, except for the last 2 or 3 months, I really fell out of doing it. And so the other day, I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into doing my meditation. I sat down, and if you don't know TM, they give you a mantra, and you say it over and over and over again for 20 minutes. Supposed to do it twice a day. I usually do it once a day. And so I sat down, and here's where my brain is at. I sat down, and I couldn't remember my mantra. A word, it's not a real word, it's like a Sanskrit word, so it's a mumbo jumbo, but I've said it hundreds of thousands of times over and over again. And it took me 5 minutes to remember my mantra. There's a sign you may need to be meditating. Yes. So, yeah, and then somebody sent me, I had mentioned missing JoJo, and then somebody sent, this guy Harry Broom, a listener, sent in a song that is a song that I've always loved. I guess I hadn't listened that hard to the lyrics, but it's called Kite by U2. And here's some of the lyrics. Apparently, Bono wrote the song for his daughter. But there's different interpretations. Then I looked it up and different things. But it seems like he mostly wrote it for his daughter who was leaving home. And some of the lyrics are, I want you to know that you don't need me anymore. I want you to know you don't need anyone or anything at all. Who's to say where the wind will take you? Who's to say what it is will break you? I don't know which way the wind will blow. Who's to know when the times come around? Don't want to see you cry. I know that this is not goodbye. Yeah, few tears on the first round of listening to that. And it was the song that got me originally was, of course, the Beatles, She's Leaving Home, Bye Bye. She's leaving home after living alone for so many years. So I'm due. I called her yesterday and she was out all day, so she's going to call me back today and we're going to find out what's going on in her life. Anyway, if you're sad, here's another way of dealing with it. The podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. BetterHelp wants to tackle some of the stigmas around mental health. For example, everybody thinks that therapy is, it's not for me. Other people have problems. They're worse than me. They're more depressed. They're more whatever. No, anybody can benefit from talking to a trained therapist and getting deep into some thought patterns you're having that you want to break out of. We've always thought that it's like, here's what it comes down to. It's like you exercise, you watch your diet, you reach out to friends when you're feeling down. You should also reach out to a therapist. I'm not saying year round, year after year, but if you're feeling it, reach out. It will turn things around for you. I have had a therapist through BetterHelp for the last year and a half, and it's been amazing. I got hooked up first time. If you don't like the person, you can switch easily. There's no charge to switch therapists, and you can do it online. You can do it in person. It's a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and live sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. Much more affordable. It's way more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in less than 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. Fitzdog Radio listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. That's betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. Also, you want to eat right, people. America's online butcher, Good Chop. They've set me up with a subscription, and let me tell you something. In terms of the quality of the meat, you will not do better at your favorite steakhouse, chop house, chicken restaurant. They offer you food that is high quality, and it's American meat and seafood. You can choose a medium or a large plan. It's a flexible monthly subscription. They deliver it flash frozen, sealed in dry ice in an insulated box. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any more fresh. You can custom make it beef, chicken, seafood, pork products. Like the beef, you can get a well-marbled Angus choice with prime cuts, 100% grass-fed steaks. They've got seafood that's sustainable and wild-caught, salmon, Pacific cod, whatever you want, they got it. I got myself a little T-bone the other night on the grill, and it's almost like just a little salt and pepper. It's got so much flavor. I go to Morton's, I go to Ruth's Chris, all these places that I would put this meat up against any of it. And you don't have to deal with shopping. You don't have to deal with wondering if your supermarket's got good meat. It's 100% money back guarantee. All products sourced from the USA. And you support local family farms and independent ranchers right here in the U.S. So go to goodchop.com/Fitzdog100 and use code Fitzdog100 to get, ready for this, $100 off your first 3 boxes. Once again, go to goodchop.com/Fitzdog100 and use code Fitzdog100 to get $100 off your first 3 boxes. Good Chop, America's online butcher. Okay, so let's get through some mail. You guys have sent a lot of mail lately. I like to get back to you. Well, I get back to you, but I also like to read some of the stuff on the air. This is a guy named Drew who said, I'm from a blue-collar Irish Catholic town. across the river from Philly called Gloucester City, New Jersey. We once owned the Guinness Book of World Records for most bars per capita at 38 total establishments. I had heard it was Ithaca, New York, because they've got, is it Cornell? There's SUNY Ithaca, there's Cornell, I believe. There's like 4 colleges in one little valley. I heard they had the record, but I'll look it up. I actually just ordered the Guinness Book of World Records because I realized how much fun I used to have reading through it. And it should be coming to the house any day. He also says, we talk about nicknames on the show, so he's got some nicknames for us. My grandfather was Flounder, short for flounder ass, because he had a really flat ass. My dad was Billy Bees, which was the name of a go-go club he frequented, which was shortened to Beasley. Hans, short for handsome. Halfa for half a man. My grandpa called me Jerk Off, so that kind of stuck, unfortunately. And my dad's friends have nicknames like Hoagie. They all refer to each other as Hans. Yo, Hans for handsome. Hawker, who died, who was a cop, and the mayor. Anyway, he goes on and on with all these great names. I love to hear them. Finally, I also practice cognitive behavioral therapy and have dealt with depression my entire life. And what you said about cross-examining your thoughts is a huge step in dealing with your depression. That and eating shrooms while listening to Astro Weeks in a field. Yes! For me, it'd probably be Rainbows, or Wilco's Star Wars. No! Do not make the mistake of listening to Wilco on mushrooms, because Wilco is groovy. I mean, you unless it's maybe Mermaid Avenue, which is more mellow. They will fuck you with a crazy like techno loop, and it could throw you off. So stay away from Wilco. They just drop it in the middle of a mellow song. All of a sudden, there's like a crazy. It's like you're at an EDM show. This is from Steve Albatis. Hey, Fitzdog, want to write and let you know I'm really glad you still hang with Corolla. I'm sure he falls on the other end of the spectrum politically, but you guys seem to have a good time regardless. It stinks that we live in a time where this email is even necessary. My family has divisions in it because of politics, and frankly, I think it's stupid. Let's enjoy each other's company, have fun with, and in spite of our differences, and love each other for the times we have together. We're on the earth for a short period of time. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, it's true. I do not agree with Adam's politics, but I've known him for a lot of years. He's a good man, good friend. We have a lot of laughs together, and I still go on the show. I enjoy it. David Ottinger said, anyway, I recently heard you tell the Simca, the Israeli story. It's almost as funny as the Grapefruit Simmons story. But what cracked me up about your own personal raid on Entebbe was the fact that Simca is Hebrew, means joyous event. A bar mitzvah or Jewish wedding in the Jewish world is a Simca. So the rage-filled lunatic who had you in a headlock on stage was named after a good time. I thought you might like to know for future reference. Thank you, David. Let's do an overheard, and then we'll get to my guest. Mark D'Antonio said, slightly ethnic-looking girl coming out of Fan Tan Alley in Victoria, BC. Quote, I did not ask to be hunted down by white supremacists, but here I am. She is coming out of a tanning salon being approached by white supremacists. Well, I would say if you are in an area that has white supremacists, maybe lay off the tanning salon for a while. I'm listening to your podcast with Andy Richter. Before the interview, you mentioned working at a hospital when AIDS first started spreading and that it was called something else. I've heard Dr. Drew talk about hospitals calling it GRIDS before it was AIDS. I think it stood for, well, I'll tell you, it stands for gay-related immune deficiency. That's what they first called the disease. Before they realized it was a blood, they didn't even know that it was a blood-transmitted disease at that time. They didn't know if it was breath or whatever. And I was in the hospital freaking the fuck out, delivering food to people who had, at the time, signs on their door that said grid. And anyway, we've talked about it. All right, coming up, some road dates. Lexington, Kentucky, February 24th through the 26th at the Comedy Off-Broadway. Omaha, Nebraska, February 27th at the Waiting Room, which is a funky rock club I'm looking forward to. St. Patty's Day, March 17th, Hollywood Improv. Always sells out soon, so get your tickets. Spokane, Washington, right? April 14th through the 16th. Then I'm coming to New Orleans on April 21st. Lafayette, Louisiana, April 22nd. Dates at Fitzdog.com. Get your tickets there. On the show now, let's introduce my guest. He is an old friend from starting out in Boston many years ago, a guy that I've looked up to, have been in awe of the things he's done. He is just truly a master at what he does. He's smart, intelligent, he's got integrity, and funny as shit. You know him from Mr. Show, you know him from Arrested Development, and now his new special, which is called I'm From the Future, that you can get from his website. We'll talk about it during the podcast. Here's my chat with the lovely and talented David Cross. Coming in live from Brooklyn, New York, home of the Nets, David Cross. What's happening?
Hey, Greg, and where are you coming in from?
I'm in Venice Beach, California.
Sorry.
I know you don't like Venice. It gets a lot of grief lately. There's a lot of disparity between wealth.
Oh yeah, my grief goes back a bit, but it's continual. It hasn't changed. It's only solidified. Right.
Isn't your wife from Venice?
Yeah. And she's born and raised Venice, sort of.
Yeah.
I believe Venice was actually bigger at one point, and now what was once part of Venice is now considered Santa Monica. I'm not exactly sure.
Well, the whole area was originally owned by a guy named Abercrombie and another guy, and they were real estate developers back in the turn of the century. Mm-hmm. Which century? You have to actually say now which century it was turning.
That's right.
But I guess the beginning of the 20th century, they owned it. And then Abercrombie had gone to Italy, and he went to Venice, and he fell in love with the whole canal thing. So he came back and he offered his friend, he said, let's build canals all over Venice and Santa Monica. And the guy goes, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so Abercrombie said, all right, well, then let's split up the land and I'm going to make canals. And most people don't realize that most of Venice was canals. You know how there's that little section that has canals now?
Yeah.
Well, anytime you see a wide road in Venice, that was a canal.
And, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then it all got corroded. It turned bad after 30 or 40 years. And so they paved it.
You mean the water table actually got or when you say corroded, how?
Yeah, so? I think that the water didn't flow in and out from the ocean the way he thought it would. And so a lot of the canals got... a
lot of poo, a lot of human poo.
Lot of human poo. And it's back. The human poo is back.
It is back and better than ever.
Yeah. How's the homelessness in Brooklyn these days?
I mean, you don't sense it or feel it the way you do in Los Angeles. And I can't speak to all of Los Angeles. I can talk to that specific part of Venice, Santa Monica, and also Hollywood. And I was just there. I got back Sunday night. I was just there for 2 days. Well, it was going to be 2 days, and then my flight got canceled because of the blizzard. So I was there for 3 days. I mean, it's. I'm not. I guess because of the density of New York and the already kind of sort of crazy folks that aren't homeless. It just doesn't stand out as much as it does when you're walking around Hollywood or Santa Monica and Venice, and it is and also, you don't see a ton of homeless in the residential sections of New York, and because there's kind of a blending, but in Los Angeles, like a lot of other cities, here's your residential street, here's your other residential street, here's 2 more residential streets, and then here's your main street with shops and stuff on it. And it tends to be like that, whereas that's not really the case in New York. And so I think those factors make the homeless situation, at least visually, stand out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would also say that, and this could be completely bullshit, but it feels like the mental illness in the homeless in LA is a bigger issue than the mental illness in New York's homeless.
Yeah, I think that's true. And now there's this new faction of homeless that are really like people that consider themselves kind of like they just want to be off the grid. They're free spiriters. They almost consider themselves like campers, and they'll get Winnebagos and they'll customize them and then just live on the street. And it really is a lot of people that have, I forget, my wife was telling me there's a disorder that a lot of them have, that from studying them, of being obstinate, like a personality disorder where you're just obstinate. They're the kids that dominated your class when you were a kid, of taking all the attention away because of their behavior. They're all living in campers together now. And there's an energy that comes from that is so fucking chaotic. It's like the Warriors. Was that the movie, The Warriors?
The gangs where the guys had to get to Brooklyn from Manhattan, or from the Bronx or whatever.
When you walk through certain areas, that's what it feels like. And that's not funny, but
it's too bad they didn't have Uber or Lyft back then, because then the Warriors they just had to go to Coney Island, and it wouldn't have been such an issue.
They would have hanging their heads out the window. Warriors, come out and play.
Especially if they had brought a change of clothes with them in a little shopping bag, like a little plastic bag. They could have. There are just some things they could have done differently.
Yeah, I know, and also like it's sometimes you lose a warrior and you're trying to find them, and you could have dropped a pin into your GPS. It would have made coordinating a lot easier.
Yeah, that guy's chained up to the bench in Central Park, and let's leave him be.
That West Side Story is funny. I was talking to my friend Mike Gibbons. You know Mike Gibbons.
Yeah.
And he has this whole thing about how he hates West Side Story. And I think there's a point where you got to just go, no, I like singing, dancing gangs. I think there's something fun about that.
Oh, it's fucking great. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the argument is. I mean, if the music and the lyrics were shitty, sure, but they're amazing. It's Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim. I mean, it's incredible, and the choreography and I mean, come on, it's a great movie.
And Rita Moreno, is that her name?
Yep.
I think she won the Oscar for that.
I'm not sure. I know George Takeiras did.
Okay.
Plays, leader of the Sharks.
And oh my God, wasn't I did a dive on Wikipedia for this interview. It's the first time.
My father-in-law. It's my father-in-law.
Your father-in-law was in West Side Story.
Yeah, he was a big part of it. He's Riff.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you know him? Is he still around?
Yeah, I just saw him, had dinner with him the other night in LA.
Shit.
Oh, yeah. He was just here for Christmas holidays. Him and his wife were here. And yeah, he's great. He's awesome. He's got an amazing... He's full of stories. He's like my wife, was a childhood actor.
Right.
In the studio system in Hollywood, and never, even though he dropped out, moved to Topanga Canyon in the I don't know if it was the 60s or 70s to become an
Really?
artist, which he was. Yeah, he was a full-time
Wow.
visual artist. But I mean, his IMDb page is insane. It's like 90 miles long.
Really?
Yeah, he's done tons of stuff. He was in Todd Margaret. He plays my dad in Increasingly Poor Decisions of Todd.
Oh, no shit. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And he was in my movie Hits. He plays one of the sanitation guys.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Wow. It's amazing actors of that generation were able to actually make a good living without necessarily...
they didn't so much. I mean, they, as you know, I mean, people didn't really get compensated until like the not too long ago, really, historically. Like I believe it was, I want to say it was one of the Gilligan's Islands actors who like first brought the idea of residuals to attention. Like those guys didn't get shit.
Probably Bacchus, the millionaire. He was probably the one that did
there
it.
you go. But yeah, they didn't, people think it was only like the top, just like in American society, it was like the top 1/100% that made a bunch of money, but they were beholden to the studios. They would sign, they would be like salaried for a year's worth of work, and then they would just, the child labor laws weren't anything back then for actors, and they would just, oh my God, have you ever read stories about the Little Rascals and what they had to do?
No.
I mean, they're working like 60-hour weeks. They're kids, and it's nuts. And they were happy to have the $5, but I mean, it's not like it is today.
I remember talking to Ray Romano about because they had the twins on his TV show, and with it's called the Coogan laws that protect kids.
Yeah, Jackie Coogan, right?
Yeah. And so one of the things is that if you have a child actor or like a baby, then it has to have a twin or at least a sibling that looks like him, so that every 90 minutes you have to switch out kids, and then you have to do that all day.
You only have the kid for X amount of time. That's why they hire and cast twins, so that they can do that. Otherwise, you can still have a kid. You just can't work with them all the time. I've worked on plenty of movies and TV shows where you are scheduled around a kid's schedule, and they have to. It's like, why are we shooting that scene that has nothing to do with this stuff, and it's from and the script isn't even done, and it's a night shot and it's supposed to be a day shot. And they're like, well, because the kids, we've only got the kid for 6 hours, so we're gonna have to squeeze some stuff in there. There's been a lot of that. We got to work around
Nolan's gymnastics class.
Yeah.
My kids, we had this friend who represents child actors, and she said, can I represent your kids when they were little? And we were like, we definitely don't want to go down that road. That seems like so we said, you can have them until they're 3. And and they both booked like fucking crazy till they were 3. And so that's why I know it's called the Coogan thing, because they both have these Coogan accounts. And my son just turned 18, and he got his Coogan account. He gets turned over to him, and now he's pimping it in Chicago.
That's a little different. That's a thing where the parents can't take the money from the kids are earning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Macaulay Culkin might have had something to do with that.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to meditate this morning, and I think you said you meditate also, right?
I do not.
Oh, I thought you did.
Not. I don't have a philosophical reason why. I just don't. I haven't been able to successfulily do it. I can nap. I'm good at napping.
That's good. That's a meditation.
Yeah. I can't. I haven't figured out those things, and I've tried some of those, meditation hack things, like count backwards and start from your toes and shut your toes and all that stuff. And it just doesn't work.
Right.
I think it's just, all the acid I did in the 80s and 90s. It's just not letting me be. But I'm not successful at it, but I can definitely like lay down and take a nap for. And also, I know some people aren't successful at this, but if I, it'll take me a little while to fall asleep, but I can fall asleep for a pretty good deep sleep for like 15 minutes, and I'm pretty good. I get up and I feel like, I feel recharged, as it were. And I know
all meditation is getting you to that REM state. It's about, through the mantra, lowering your brain waves into that state. So it's the same thing. I think reading is also meditation. I know that if I sit and read for an hour, I walk away feeling like I just meditated.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if I, depending on the material, it could also start to make me too relaxed,
Yeah.
Where I might just fall asleep.
Right. What are you reading right now?
Well, I'm reading a bunch of stuff because, and I was reading The Power Broker, which you gave me, which you sent to me. And
you did read? Oh, good.
I didn't read all the way through. It's
massive.
It's dense. That is a dense. It's great though. I mean, I was really enjoying it, but then, it's like 700 pages or something, and I had to put it down because I'm working on this thing with Bob Odenkirk and his brother Bill, and so I've started reading a lot of materials about, people in cults and people that have come out of cults and different perspectives. Yeah, so I started reading. It's mostly, and Bob is burns through books, so he'll go, get this one, get that. And I'm like trying to catch up.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to put that other stuff down just for, read. And if I was going to pick up a book just to read leisurely, it would probably be fiction as opposed to that kind of nonfiction because it's so similar to what I'm reading.
Right. Yeah, the Robert Caro one, that's a cruel gift to send a friend, a 700-page book. But I just felt like I know
it's
that
good. It's
well,
good.
I know
like
that you're passionate about New York City, and it's an interesting look at how, like, literally things you take for granted, like the Triborough Bridge, you drive over it, and you never think about, like, when was that built, and how did they clear the on-ramp to
the
get...
BQE and all that stuff. I mean, the Belt Parkway,
and the gardens. What's the one that goes out to Long Island? Not the Meadow, something Meadow Parkway.
Fresh Meadow? No, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's Fresh Meadow. Yeah.
I don't know, but the way he sets up his, he's really thorough and a very good writer. But the minutia, which is important, of setting up his, inherent elitism and how he came to believe that. About himself, about people, and the idea of when he went to Oxford and became so enamored of these like upper class, it's all nepotism and royalty, and he missed the obvious connection, to what would make that person feel elite, and because he wasn't from that. But his parents had money, and it's the whole thing is very fascinating.
And it's also like looking at how altruism was combined with this, really capitalist, hardcore mentality, and they justify it.
It wasn't pure altruism. Altruism becomes the justification for the hardcore capitalist stuff. But it was also it was racist, and it was clearly. It's a really fascinating book that I will finish, and I thank you for sending it to me. And perhaps I should send you Ulysses or the Odyssey, maybe.
The only way I could read Ulysses is if I was always thinking like, take it as a class, like a one-semester class where you could actually sit with a group of people and take it apart every week for like 4 months.
In Dublin, they will do they'll do like Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man walks, and they go everywhere, and Finnegan's Wake and Ulysses and all that stuff. Yeah, they have whole like weekend, week-long type of classes where they do something akin to that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to go this summer. The last 2 summers, we were supposed to go to Ireland, my mother, my sister, my cousins, and then it keeps getting canceled because of this, what is it? COVID. Novid-19.
Novidol.
Yeah.
Novid-19, yeah.
So congratulations on your new special. I just watched it. I'm from the future. It's classic Cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's you up there fucking just so conversational and engaging and interesting and shocking, and it's so great. Yeah, I really admire the way you can fucking not rush to the laugh and just kind of be in it and take the audience with you. Not too many people can prolong it for that long.
Yeah, that's I mean, part of the fun for me, at least on stage when I'm doing it, knowing, I'm aware of the punchline and where the thing's going. But I've always loved that. I've always loved that long. Like I have one, I mean, every special or, has one of those type of things. There's, I can't remember what it's on, but a whole long thing about, dealing with my depression and having to admit things it's just long, and then it has a really, it gets to this whole thing, and it's like, and I realized the entire time I had a rock in my shoe, and it's like a 2-minute setup to get to that dumb little thing, and I have one of those each special I have, and it's amazing that it still works. That people are like, "Oh wow, are you serious? Okay," and then,
But it takes acting chops to pull that off, and you open with it. You walk out on stage and you go to it.
Don't give anything away.
I won't give anything away, but just that you start with that structure, and that's a tough way to start a special. And you did it at the Bell House, which I think I did a show with you there about 2 or 3 years, probably 4 years ago, and that's a fun room because it's big.
It's great.
It's big enough to get some critical mass, but it's small enough to still be intimate.
Exactly. And that's where, when I was going to go on tour, this special actually resulted it's a result of having to cancel the tour. But the tour I was going to do, I was going back to that idea that thing where I started, where, a band would open up for me and I'd be in music venues, and, it would just be more dense and packed, and it was just that kind of vibe where a band would play and then I'd come on right after, and I wanted to go back to that, which I used to do way back in the day, and I love doing theaters. That's its own thing. It's satisfying, but it's not as fun. It's not as immediate, and just to have everybody right there, and just the energy's different, and people standing and as well, and it's the Bell House is just perfect for that. And I actually got rid of a camera. We were going to have, the standard 5 cameras, one of them being a jib, and I got rid of the jib so we could fit, 40 more people in there. It's fun. Right. It's great. Bell House is great.
I like that. Get rid of the jib shot. I hate the jib shot. It's corny. Everybody does it.
So corny. And you didn't miss it when you're watching, when you watch my special. You didn't go, hey, where's that long, arcing shot that goes above the audience's head and lands on, nobody cares.
No, and I like the camera work. The one guy was really, really on you, and as you were moving, he was moving, and it was very connected, but it was also fluid. That's good. I'll let him know. Who was the director? We didn't really have a director. It was kind of just a collective. I've never done something so quickly. Like, I canceled the tour, which I did. I just went up to the last minute where it was like this, Delta and Omicron. It was the kind of dovetailing of that. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. I think it was when did we find out about No, I guess it was when Omicron started. It was just bad. And it had gotten better in New York, but still out in the Midwest and the South, which was unfortunately the first region I was going to tour in, it was getting crazy. And so that is to say, I was like, I canceled the tour, and then I scrambled to put this stuff together, because a lot of this material, I'd say roughly 40% of it, I'm not going to do in 2 years when I get to go back out again. I mean, No, it's like the first 2/3 of it is all about COVID, and it's very
it isn't.
contextual.
It feels like that, but it's not. It's I think it's the first. It's really only about if you don't include the "I'm from the future" bit where I'm talking to the kids, the little kids in school, then it's really like 20 something minutes.
Okay,
it's so relentless in the beginning. But the stuff about my dog and, euthanasia and all that kind of stuff, those are things
I want to talk to you about that because I'm going through the exact same thing. I have 2 dogs and they're like 15 and 16 years old.
Yeah.
They're little. They're cute and they've gotten way less cute. They have overstayed their welcome on this planet at this point. And one of them has dementia and is blind and has glaucoma, so her eye bulges out, and a wart that grows and pusses every day. And then the other one loses his temper because he's old, and he bites her, and he bit her eyeball last week. And so it's time. The thing is it's time to put them both down, but I don't feel like I can show up at a vet and go like, hey, do you have a special? Or like, can I do both my dogs? Because it feels like it should be, you talk about it in the special. And I think it's like, deciding the moment that you put a dog down is very difficult.
The difficult thing was the part where you should put them down, and then the point between that point and the point where you go, okay, I'm going to put them down. I'm going to schedule an appointment. We're going to do this. That part in between is the hard part because you already know logic, your, basic ability to observe this animal that's in pain and not, the quality of life isn't good for her anymore. That you've made that decision. It's just so hard to come to it and pull the trigger, as it were. I shot my dog. The idea, those are the difficult, for me, it was months, and for some people it's a year or two. And that's the hardest thing, is that, your fucking brain is screaming, you've got to do this. And your heart is saying, well, we can wait a minute. It's not so bad. And, it was, and also the actual process, the actual, and here's the thing. I don't know if I talked about this. I cut a bunch out in the special just because I thought it was getting extraneous and belaboring the point. And I, just done it when I shot the special. It was only, it was, I was not that far removed from it. And, but I scheduled the thing, for 3:30. And so you have that whole day.
And you did it in your house? Like they come over your house?
Yeah. And, and cause of my daughter, we're up around 7, and so I had basically 8.5 hours to hang out with this dog, knowing that I was going to kill it.
Right.
And it's just the sadness and the responsibility. And I know if you're listening to this doesn't sound funny at all, but trust me, it's funny in the special. But I go about it a different way, obviously. But yes.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to ask you also about. I'm
sorry, Greg. Can I also say that because this is important, because it's you can access the special right now. You can only access it on my website, which is officialdavidcross.com, and that's the only place to see it exclusively there. That's where you go to see it.
Oh, and do you pay for it, or you just watch it?
Fuck yeah, you pay for it. I paid for the fucking production. This is all out of pocket. Yeah, no, I paid every single person, worked on that thing, and I'd like to get paid back for that.
Yeah, as you should, because there's a whole thing now with comics putting out a special on their own on YouTube, and people end up taking a bath sometimes because they think they're going to make money on YouTube ads or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, there's two very positive things about putting it out on my website on my own. One of which is, it lives there in perpetuity. It'll be there forever, and I own it. I can do whatever I want. And in part, the second thing that's great is when I was shopping around the idea. This was I shot it in early November. And was shopping the idea around in December, special in December, and people are saying, well, we've got a couple spaces in the third quarter of 2022, and some people are like, we could put it out in 2023. We've got our slate for 2022 already, and I was like, this isn't this special in particular is not going to feel
needs
good.
To come out now.
Yeah, it needs to come out now. And I turned it around super quick. I mean, I shot in November and it's coming out in February.
Yeah.
And it's all done. And it's and to be fair, I could have put it out at the end of January. I mean, these last couple of weeks is just to promote it and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's so much better, and I can have control over it. Again, I can just, it's all.
And you don't have to deal with
website.
ads. If you put it up on YouTube, they drop ads in throughout it. And it's just, that's not the way you're supposed to watch a special.
No.
But I noticed at the beginning, was that John Benjamin who's doing the opening bit? Yeah. And I was thinking about that. Like, I went back and I was thinking about cross comedy, which if people don't know, you were the creator and director of a sketch group in Boston that was really important. It was really like seminal in creating like a space in Boston for a different type of comedy, because Boston comedy had a very distinct voice up until then. And then Catch a Rising Star opened up in Boston, and then you and John Benjamin, and I mean, the lineup was crazy. I found an old picture of you guys, like your group shot, and it was John Benjamin. I think Jonathan Groff was he in it?
Jonathan Groff, yep.
Jonathan Groff,
John Ennis,
David Waterman,
Lauren Dabrowski. I mean, a lot of these people went on to do a lot of great shit. Carrie Prusa, Helene Lantry, who else? Jim DeCroto, Cristino.
Was Paul Kozlowski part of that?
Paul Kozlowski.
Yeah.
Sam Cedar.
Yeah.
I mean, and we had kind of people like Sam and Louis C.K. and
Marin
and Laura Keitlinger and Janine Garofalo were all kind of, dropped in, here and there. But yeah, as far as that core group, because Jonathan became head writer on Conan, and Lauren Dabrowski became the head writer producer on Mad TV. And, a lot of people.
Jonathan Groff is one of the biggest showrunners in Hollywood right now. He
was an early Jeopardy champion, like long, one of the early pre-Ken Jennings, long Jeopardy champion run guys.
Yeah, and it was really like, as a comic at that time that was, exploring. When you're young as a comic, the kind of the fun thing is going back and looking at some of the shit that you did, because if you're good, you're trying everything. You try impressions. You try using a musical instrument, and then you realize, wow, that didn't feel right. A lot of people don't know this about Greg, if I can say this, but he used to do, and not to the greatest success all the time, but Boston audiences are tough. But you would do Cher, and you would bring up a glockenspiel, and which is a kind of a unwieldy instrument. It's big, and it would take you a good 30 seconds to get it set up and on stage. Which, you'd think you would incorporate into your, but you were very serious about it, and so you didn't like that people were kind of making fun of you. Or finding humor in it, and then you would do Cher, and you'd go over your time. When you're doing open mic nights and stuff, you're supposed to do like 5 minutes, and you would do 12 minutes, and we'd have to call security, and it took a while to get the glockenspiel off the stage, and it wasn't very good. Your Cher was not good.
that was another thing. And you had you had a costume change and wig changes, and you went through her, the whole thing from Sonny and Cher. It was, and that was just one bit that you did.
That was one bit
that had nothing to do with your other material.
No,
it was crazy.
And just putting the face on, putting Cher's face on was an hour and a half.
Good Lord, yeah.
Yeah. And I look back and I go, maybe I should have just been Sonny, because I think the bar was lower on many levels to just be Sonny. But I discovered you guys and your sensibility, and I was addicted. I would go, what was it, Monday nights, right, at Catch?
Yeah, Monday nights.
I would go there on Monday nights because, and the big open mic night when you're starting out was at Nick's Comedy Stop on Monday. So you would go from like watching, oh God, who was the guy from Rhode Island? Not Johnny Peasy, Ed Regine.
Oh, Ed Regine. Do you know my Ed Regine story?
No.
Have I not told you?
No.
Oh,
Ed Regine.
Right.
If people don't know, Ed Regine was a Rhode Island comedian.
People don't know.
Who was arrested and sent to prison for rolling back odometers. That was his side hustle when he was a comedian, and he was a big Italian guy from Rhode Island. Super
Ed
talented.
The Machine. His nickname was Ed the Machine Regine.
Ed the Machine Regine.
And describe his headshot.
Well, it was a guy with a machine gun, and he was dressed as a mafia guy, right?
No. Well, maybe at one point, but later on, he did one of those classic four shots in one, like right. 4 squares. And he did because he did Tina Turner. He had his Tina Turner wig. And then he did his regular kind of wacky face. And then the Italian mafioso guy. And then something else. I can't remember what it was, like a weird doctor or something. I don't know what it was. But that's always a red flag. When you see that headshot, it's a red flag. But keep describing him.
Oh, so he would, and then I remember one time, I think he was driving home and he got pulled over by the cops, and not afraid of a few cocktails after the show. And so he's driving home and a cop pulls him over and he's inebriated and he's wearing the Tina Turner outfit.
This is a famous story.
And I think he got out of it, didn't he?
I mean, he was fairly well known by some of the cops and stuff in Providence and all that. Like, people knew who he was in that kind of circuit. But so here's it's very brief, but it was so I barely had any interactions with him. We kind of didn't run in the same circles. He would. I don't think he ever did anything at Catch, and occasionally I would do Nick's or Sam's or Connection, but not a whole lot. Maybe I saw him like at Stitches or something like that, but we just were 2 different sides of the spectrum, and but we did know each other. We were friendly if we saw each other. We just didn't see each other that much. But years and years and years and years and years and years later, so I was shooting Alvin and the Chipmunks 3, and a chunk of that movie takes place on a cruise ship, and I've talked about this extensively. It was a really awful experience, but regardless of that, so you're locked on the cruise ship. I mean, there's nowhere to go, and you cannot avoid anybody. And I was there for whatever it was, 14 days. It was excruciating, and they had comedian on the boat. They had a bunch of different shows that would play, Salute to Hollywood and all that kind of shit. And I see, Ed the Machine Regine and I'm like, oh shit, wow, I got to go check this out. So I go to a show and I'm expecting, and I shouldn't have, this is on me. I was just expecting, again, this has been decades. And he comes out and he's literally doing the same set from 1982. The same fucking set. The same impressions. Not a word about, like, nothing about, I was in jail, I feel terrible about now, and I was, whatever, any kind of self-reflection or anything. Right. Any jokes about jail? No jokes about jail. No jokes about prison food. No jokes. Nothing. Zero. Nothing. And it's just Cher and Tina Turner, and I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, nothing? Not a fucking one observation?
Yeah. Same thing happened with me. I took my son to visit colleges in Boston, and I saw that one of the guys that I loved and you loved, I'm not going to say his name, was performing, and we had a night free, and so I said, Owen, I'm about to blow your mind. Because all I talk about is like, you know, of all the comedians that I've learned from and watched growing up, I put Don Gavin up there with any of them. You know?
Yeah.
There's certain comedians in Boston, Steve Sweeney and Mike Donovan and Mike McDonald. Like, there's guys that just Tony V that are as good as anybody.
I would say Don Gavin and Lenny Clark. Just I mean, all those guys are great, but just as far as the kind of prototypical Boston comic, like. I mean, they're just, and they start and they're 100 miles a minute, and they can make you weep. You know, it's where a guy like Nick DiPaolo is obviously influenced by, and
right.
And Nick's great. It's that style, that kind of rapid fire, quick. And there's definitely some. Misogynist shit in there. And some, there's plenty of that stuff, but God damn it, they're great at what they do,
And they are caustic. There is no sense at all that they give a shit what the audience thinks about them. They are doing it up there, and they are, there's some comedians where they're asking your permission throughout their set to perform. And these guys are just like, no, I'm the alpha male in the room, and you will laugh at this. But anyway, so I took my son to see one of these guys, and it was the same thing. I was whispering the punchlines to Owen as he was doing them, and it was so sad because it's like, you came up with that hour you're doing that you did 30 years ago. You were smart enough and clever enough, and then what happened? And
I'd say that's the majority of those guys. I mean, I don't want to talk shit about, but you mentioned some of them, and it's just like exactly like bits that would, when you were 19 years old, 20 years old, and you're watching them and you're starting out and doing shit, and they're just killing, like, oh my God, this is great, and then literally 25 years later, it's the same, like nothing. You haven't written one new thing. And you're right. They were so, they wrote all that other stuff at some point, and it's all really great.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I saw it with Kevin Meaney, who is like one of my dearest friends, and I think honestly, crushed harder than anybody I've ever seen crush on stage. Just into like, young comics love saying, "Oh yeah, I just went up at the store, I crushed." No, you didn't. You didn't crush. You had a good set. You did good relative to how you normally do, but watch Kevin Meaney on The Tonight Show making Johnny Carson put his head on the desk and pound it. That's crushing. Watch Kevin Meaney at the Catch a Rising Star in Boston, where the crowd, they're not even making noise anymore because they're all doubled over trying to catch their breath.
And when Meaney was not worried about being clean, I mean, Jesus, he would go off, and the stuff he would do at like, he'd do those shows from the Paradise, and film it, like, just crazy shit where he'd go out in the street, and I mean, just great, amazing.
Sweeney and Meaney, he used to do a show with Steve Sweeney together, and then he'd run out on the street before anybody was doing man on the street stuff. He was out doing it. But I saw him get stuck because he was such a killer, and I think it was hard for him at a certain point to write new stuff that was going to be, how do you top We Are the World? I mean, like at its time, one of the greatest closing bits of all time, but not 20 years later. But you just realize you get addicted to that high, and there's an insecurity with taking that step back and feeling the pain of a new joke dying. But you forget also the rush of a new joke doing well. I don't relate to that at all. There's no part of me that can relate to that. I mean, to be truthful, I have a little bit of contempt. I don't get it, and it's not anything I can really respect.
It's just it's so odd. Yeah, I mean, especially to have all the life experiences one would have, and just nothing.
Yeah. I think it's just fear. I think fear just takes over.
Take 3 minutes in your set and go, okay, I'm going to try a new joke and whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to compute that.
Right.
Who was it? And you can cut it out.
I'll tell you after, or okay. I'll email you. I'll email you right now.
Boy, you are afraid. This guy must have long reach, part of the deep state.
No, I just have so much respect for him. He's really, he's really great. Hold on.
Are you emailing it to me right now?
Yeah, check your emails.
All right. Let's see. It does. Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
He was a killer. Yeah.
And also, like, we can't talk about it. Okay, yeah, but some of those bits are just classic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you make in a year? Like, how much money do you make a year?
Totally depends. I mean, some years it's none of your fucking business, and then other years it's totally none of your fucking business.
I was thinking about that yesterday because, like, I think that the billionaires have convinced us to be ashamed of saying what we make. Like, nobody will ever answer that question because you either are making less than what you think people think you make and you don't want them to know the truth, or you're making so much that you don't want people to think you're bragging. And so, like, the truth is, in other countries, it's not an issue. People discuss what they make very freely. Almost
because
what car you drive.
In other countries they have a fair tax system. So
right.
Here we don't. So it's for me, a lot of it is, and I know this, so that's half the battle. I don't. It's one of the few things that I do care about that makes me uncomfortable, which is having money in any capacity. And I defend it. I work very hard. I'm also, in a sense, much like a lawyer or a doctor, I'm getting paid now for all the hard work I put in for decades where you didn't get paid. So there's that kind of thing.
Right.
But I mean, I'm embarrassed when is that embarrassed not the right word? I don't know. I'm self-aware, self-conscious, a little uncomfortable when some of my daughter's schoolmates come over because we have a fucking awesome house. I have a beautiful 125-year-old brownstone, original stuff, and that was a dream of mine for a long, long time, was to be able to get that. And finally, I live relatively frugally. I don't spend money on things I don't need. I wear the same clothes. I don't spend money on clothes or a car. I've got a fucking what is it? At this point, it's a 11-year-old Toyota Highlander. I don't drive fancy shit. I don't wear fancy stuff. I don't have hobbies that are expensive. And then some things, like the year I did the Making America Great Again tour and did that Netflix special was probably the most lucrative thing I've ever done. I mean, I made, at the end of the day, after paying commissions and fees and taxes and stuff, I made a lot of money. But I also did 111 shows in America, Canada, and Europe. And and it's hard. And
you prepared those shows. You spent time before that tour working on the material.
Half a year, yeah, exactly.
Not making money,
not making money, exactly.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, you get lucky and you find yourself in a beloved children's franchise that pays well and has residuals. And I'm glad I don't spend a lot of money and I save my money because the last 3 years were pretty brutal. And I did not make even close to what I've used to and what I used to make, and a lot of the revenue streams for me dried up. I don't have a podcast. I don't have what are the other ways people make money? Without
book residuals.
Yeah, I don't have that. I don't write a blog or anything like that. So, when I wasn't able to perform live and projects dried up, and a lot of stuff in the entertainment industry dried up, and now is on backlogged, so it's hard to sell a show as well. Luckily, I just did with Bob Odenkirk and I, and his brother Bill and I sold the show. But there was 1 year was just shitty luck, and then 2 years right at the end of that was the pandemic, and so I had 3 years where I didn't really work that much.
Yeah.
So, but I'm very, very aware that I'm lucky and I'm privileged and
you're talented. There's something about like I was watching Jordan Peterson. Is that guy's name? The Canadian? Yeah. And he was talking about.
Did you watch the Rogan podcast thing?
No, I watched him interviewed by another guy. It was on C-SPAN the other day. I was stuck in a hotel room on the road in Syracuse, New York, about to blow my fucking head off. And he came on, and I go, I've never watched this guy. I've always heard about him. I've never watched him. And
isn't he exactly what you would think?
Yes.
From the description, it's exactly this kind of pompous, self-assured, cocky, pseudo-intellectual nonsense.
And he was talking about how the wealthy should be allowed to be wealthy because he's like, look, why shouldn't they have all the money? I mean, hockey players, the good hockey players score all the goals.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
that's how it works.
That makes sense.
So all goalies should owe money. Every time a goal is scored, all goalies should put $1 million Canadian into the bank. Yeah, it's that kind of bullshit logic, this kind of like Ayn Rand, libertarian capitalistic shit that's just pseudo and vague and put through a sieve and just reduced to these, 10 buzzwords that don't mean anything.
And metaphors that don't stand up to scrutiny, just really random. And
have you seen the clip with Jim Jeffries when he was on Jim Jeffries' show? It's from 2 or 3 years ago, something about, it's great because it's about, I don't know, 75 seconds long, and he's sitting there and he talks about how gay people, I'm sorry, it was when the gay cake thing was happening, bakery was.
By the way, cake is gay to begin with.
It's not masculine like cobbler.
Yeah, cobbler sounds like a job and a dessert food.
It is a job. Yeah.
But you
it's
never
just great.
feel like you never feel that tough when you're at a party and they say, "Do you want cake?" There's a moment where you kind of go like, "I want it, but I don't want to seem like a homosexual," You know
what? That never bothered me. I have a different thing. It's not. I'm definitely sexually attracted to cake, and sometimes you just get this. You can't hide your heart on. It depends on the pants you're wearing, but and maybe you're in a swimsuit and you're by a children's party, and it gets bad because it's all about the cake. It's just about the cake.
Chocolate cake. That's my thing. Chocolate.
Yeah.
That was. Do you remember Louis C.K.'s movie where Chuck Sklar would sit in a bowl of ice cream?
Ice cream. Yeah, it was called Tomorrow. Yeah. Was it called Tomorrow? I think.
I can't remember, but that was such a funny fetish. He had this. He would get off on, and he was. And the character was so dressed down that he was he worked in a film developing shop, and he would not take in any more film until he got rid of all the packets of photos that people had not picked up yet. So that was the plot of the movie, was him trying to track down people that hadn't picked up their photos yet. And that was his one outlet, was sitting in a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you also about you talk about stand-up being narcissistic in your special. And it is a really weird thing because when I hear comedians describe, like the Ellen DeGeneres of the world, that say they do stand-up comedy because they want to make people happy. They want to spread joy.
I don't believe that.
I never have believed that for a second.
That sounds like such bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But,
it's a nice byproduct. Makes me feel good.
Well, you have to do that in order to be. And so it's like a doctor saying, I just want to heal people. It's like, yeah, that's your job. And if you don't heal people, you're not successful.
Right.
So yeah, of course you want to heal people, but
you want to heal people so they pay you at the end of the visit.
Yeah, I guess that's a little cynical, but for comedians to say, I just want to make people happy, I guess it's the word just which qualifies it.
Right.
It really, they should say, I want to make people happy just because it means I'll get paid.
Yes.
So the just is in the wrong
like
part
you
of
say
that
in your
sentence.
special, and they'll shut up and listen to me. You know, hundreds of people will acquiesce and sit quietly, and if they don't, they will be thrown out.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's so powerful. I love throwing people out of my shows. It just happened to me recently. There was some people talking, and I warned them, and then I looked them right in the eye, and I said, "Look, I really want you to stay. I want you to enjoy the show, but you're disrupting the show." And when you have to do that, that fucks me, because the whole persona of a stand-up comic is, going back to Gavin and those guys, is that you don't give a shit, that you're flying by the seat of your pants, and you.
No, Greg, I disagree. That I would imagine the audience, you're doing that for the audience.
Yeah.
The reason you're not kicking them out because I don't like the way you look, you're a professional. You could fucking heckle. You could turn it back on them. You could bury them. But it's disrupting your flow, your act. You don't feel like dealing with their stupid shit anymore. You don't like them now, and the audience is suffering because they don't get to hear what they came to see.
Right.
So you're doing that for the audience at that point. So it doesn't fuck you up. If anything, you're the hero in that story, and then you get rid of them. People cheer, yay, good, get rid of those fucking assholes. And then you get another couple minutes out of that, and then you get to reference them, and then they're on your side. They're like totally with you.
Right. There is a way to turn it into a positive. But it definitely, if you're trying to work on material, then it throws you out of it. Now you take long pauses, and there was one in particular in the special where I was like, nobody say anything, because you set it up as a question. It was a rhetorical thing followed by a silence.
It's in the opening bit. It's got to be.
Yeah, and I was just like, nobody ruin this. Nobody ruin this. Do you ever have people ruin moments like that?
Very rarely. I mean, probably more earlier, but I've gotten really good at knowing exactly how long to pause.
Yeah.
And even I think I probably make a gesture which is only there to make people think I'm about to say something. It just little tricks you just pick up that you don't even really think about. But as I said, I have so many of those sprinkled throughout my career and the material I've done. So many of those little things that are dependent on the pause before the punchline. And I've just learned little tricks so that people don't. And for certainly the last 10 years, if not longer, my audience knows who I am. They're there for a reason, and they're pretty awesome. My audience is great, and they have figured it out basically, and so nobody really messes with it.
Yeah. I find that with Jesselneck also. He takes these nice long pauses and gets away with it. Before we go, I'll ask you one more question that I've been asking all of my comedian guests. What's the hackiest bit you ever did?
Oh, gosh. Well, I got plenty. I think there was a bit that I did early on. It was in probably the first half hour I did. You could do those HBO half hours or something. Might have even been before that. But it's pretty hacky, but it was about I don't remember the setup, but it was about legalizing marijuana or something, and then it was like, but there's certain people who shouldn't be allowed to smoke marijuana, blah 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 blah. You're a surgeon, and then I would do a surgeon. I would do an impression of surgeon taking a bong hit, and then just being, spacey and having the munchies. It was pretty hacky. The whole idea of it was not. I mean, it was fun to do, but and it did well, but it was pretty hacky.
All right. Well, listen, the special is out. Go to Official David Cross is the website where you can check it out. It's called I'm From the Future. It's amazing, as all your specials are. And congratulations. And good luck writing a new fucking hour now.
Thanks,
Back to
Greg.
the grindstone.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. A pleasure as always.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. I'll talk to you soon.